Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. This week's lesson is all about women fighting for their rights, and it's about the suffragettes who are fighting to try to get women the right to vote in the 20th century. The story begins actually in the 19th century, where women were coming together using peaceful means to ask the government for the right to vote. When the 20th century came, it became very clear that the right to vote wasn't going to happen. So they adopted more militant means, and they started to get very, very angry, having to fight against police and what appeared to be very masculine forces in order to get the right to vote. Now, I often wonder what drove these women to be so passionate about what they believed in. And also, how does that compare to how passionate you feel about learning English? Because many of us, of course, we sometimes don't really feel that we want to learn. We just say, yeah, I'm learning. And it's more of a lifestyle choice. It's not really something which comes from our heart. Today's motivation says, every day I feel better about my English. But I think that motivation, at least in part, and that affirmation really does reflect that sometimes we feel bad about our English. To feel good about it means that we want to learn. And as I always say, you have to check your joy level to make sure that you're doing okay. If learning English is making you really unhappy, then you have to ask yourself the question, why? Is it the right time to learn? Do you have the right teacher? Are you going to the right school? Are you involved with the right people? Well, getting back to women fighting for their rights, in the news today, and this is what we're going to be focusing on, there's another group looking for rights, and that's the rights of transgendered people. Now, here in the UK, that's a big issue, and we have a very high-profile court judge who's transgendered. Her name is Victoria MacLeod, and she's Britain's first transgender judge. She's speaking out these days because June is Pride Month, which celebrates people of, different diversities. And we're going to read a newspaper article now, which is written by The Independent, and it's all about Victoria MacLeod. It says here, young transgendered people face a very difficult and dangerous period because the country has gone backwards in its attitudes towards transgendered people. Britain's first transgender court judge has warned. It says here, high-profile debates over gender recognition and spaces, such as bathrooms which women can use, has reversed public tolerance and increased abuse, according to Victoria MacLeod, who is Britain's High Court judge. Now, I have to correct myself there. It doesn't say High Court judge in this article. It just says that she's a judge. It says here, she was speaking to The Independent at the start of Pride Month, and she is recognised in this year's Independent Pride list, which celebrates Britain's top 50 change makers. And we have the new Doctor Who. I'm not sure how to say this person's name. It looks like Kuti Gatwa, former footballer Alex Scott, an actor Andrew Scott, and a member of Parliament Wes Streeting, who joined this person in the Independent Pride list. All of them have become very famous in their own way. It says here that transgender issues have become very, very political. And Miss MacLeod, who was the youngest person appointed to the King's Bench in 2010. Now, that's some reference there to her being appointed as a judge in the courts. We often refer to the bench or the bar. It says here that she said her experience of transitioning in the 1990s was incredibly positive, and it came at a time when things were much more accepting. We've taken a few steps backwards recently, she said. It's my turn to be on the receiving end of that. She says, so greatly have attitudes changed that she sees it as a general acceptance that it's okay to upset or say bad things to transgendered people. Miss MacLeod goes on to say why that might be the case, and now she's saying that being trans is being seen as a lifestyle choice, just as people used to believe that being, and she's naming some other lifestyles here. She says, just as people used to believe that being homosexual was a lifestyle, and that some people simply don't believe in a particular medical condition which she was diagnosed with. So she's making the point here that transgendered people, at least some of them anyway, perhaps have medical conditions. And she says here, Miss MacLeod says that she expects attitudes to improve and that there's a lot of hope for young transgendered people. She's also spoken about her involvement in law. Apparently in Scotland, one of our four nations, they're seeking to remove the word trans women from the legal definition of the word woman, which would mean greater acceptance of trans people. Very interesting. So that's another group which today are wanting to be heard. And Victoria MacLeod is telling us there that many trans people have particular medical conditions. And it's not just, for example, men who choose or decide one day that because spring is here, that they want to change their gender. Oh, very interesting story, yes. And she was speaking to the Independent at the start of Pride Month. So this month all across the UK and the English-speaking world, there'll be marches, demonstrations, debates and discussions about different people on the LGBTQI spectrum. And she's saying there that things are going backwards. And there's a picture of her here. Now, I don't know how I should be referring to this person, whether it's her or them, because of political correctness, but there's a picture of what looks like a female here, and her name is Victoria MacLeod, Britain's first transgender judge. And she's speaking out today as Pride Month begins. Oh, very interesting about one of our four nations wanting to change the definition of trans women, so it's included in the legal definition of simply women. So times are certainly moving on. And getting back to our affirmation of today, just before we finish, our affirmation for today simply is saying, every day I feel better about my English. And that comes usually from when we say we feel better about ourselves. And one way of doing that is always checking in on our joy level, just to make sure that it's okay. And if it's not, you have a perfect right to ask yourself, what's wrong with my joy level? Why am I not happy? And get your happiness sorted first, and you'll find English will be much easier. If you find the English itself is not bringing you joy, you really should be looking at why. Is it a thing of time? Is it a thing of energy? Is it a thing of language? Or maybe it's not related to learning at all. That's it from me today. I hope you've enjoyed this. Let's talk soon. See you. Bye.